welcome back to another episode. We are starting out by having this thing all put together and on the stand. So, as you can see, we've glued the top on, and I also glued this piece on. Now, this piece here, I'm going to go around the inside with some epoxy to hold it on better, because the entire ship is supported by this piece right here. As you can see, the whole ship kind of glues on here. The neck is it glues on here. So this thing here is all that supports it, this seam. So I'm going to make sure this can't come apart, because that would really, really stink. So all in all, it's kind of looking pretty good. We got our shuttle bay. We've got our lighting around the shuttle bay looking pretty decent. The arboretum is in and visible from the outside. It looks pretty good. So all in all, I'd say we're in a good spot. Now, there are a couple of places where there's going to be some fun times. I see a lot of putty and sanding in my future, and maybe even some filing. Starting with right here, I've got a massive high-low right here. This did not seat very well next to the tailpiece here, so I'm going to have to file this down a little bit on the edge here, and then fill it with putty to try to blend it in. So that's going to be really fun. I can't wait for that. We also have our seams here. These are definitely not as bad as they would have been, because we trimmed those bits on the inside. That helped immensely. So as you can see, there's still some there, and I may put a little bit of strip styrene in there to beef it up, and I may not. I'm not sure yet. Same with up front here. We've still got these up front. Again, they're not nearly as bad as they would have been if we hadn't trimmed that apart. So otherwise, everything looks pretty good. Nothing too terribly wrong here. I got to go and clean up some of the panel lines and fill in some of this junk here. But all in all, I think we're in a good spot. I think the worst spot is right here, to be honest. So otherwise, I think we're good. So the other thing that I've started is on the dorsal. I've been looking at how I'm going to do this. This is going to be a very, very tricky bit here, because the two halves have to go together around the torpedo launcher and the torpedo vent in the back here. So these have to be installed as you're closing it, which means you can't paint them after the fact. They have to be painted before you put them in, which means masking. Hooray, I love masking. So I think what I'm going to do, I've already light blocked this, although there's still some showing, but I think what I'm going to do is go, before I put it together, I'm going to go through and carefully prime the outside and the inside of the torpedo launcher and such, and I'm going to paint the launcher and the vent as best I can before I glue it together, and then I should only have to deal with puttying this seam here and the seam on the back, and hopefully I won't have to do too much messing with the sides. We'll have to see. Remember to mask off any of the pins. I'm going to say that again. Mask the pins. Also mask the holes. Otherwise you'll never ever get it together. Even right now, if I were to try to put the neck on, it would be incredibly stiff, and I've masked everything the whole time. So just be aware of how tight that fit is. It's designed to never come apart once it goes together. So yeah, just be careful. So next on the list, I'm going to do some cleanup on the secondary hull, especially back here, and I'm going to start prepping the dorsal to go together. There'll be some painting and some cleanup work to do here. Oh, also we have to mount the lights. This thing has spotlights as well that go right there. You can see the little holes. Those shine up at the impulse deck, so they shine upwards to where the saucer is up here. So last time I just used 3mm LEDs that were pointing straight up, and that worked ish. I'm going to try to use lighthouses this time, although there may not be quite enough room in there. We'll have to see. If there's not, I'll just use an SMD or something to light it up, and we'll see how it looks. But we'll we will figure it out as we go. So I'll definitely have those put in before the whole thing is put together. So we'll explore that together. So also I've got my hole cut right in here for any wiring. This is just the stock bar here. I do have my brass tube, and it's somewhere. You know how that goes. It's somewhere in the mess, but that we'll start to get that ready to go, so I can start getting wiring from the base up into the secondary hull. So it should go together pretty nicely, I'm hoping. So all in all, things are looking good. So I'll be back soon, and we'll see what kind of progress I make here. I'm gonna really try to make this tail blend. Oh boy, that's gonna be fun. Remember the panel lines. You've got this one that goes all the way back, and then it comes down here, and then it goes all the way forward, and then the one's in the center, and that's pretty much it. On the 1701A, there's panel lines on the tail, right down here. But this is not a panel line. This gets filled. Also, these get filled here and here. So, yeah. That'll be fun. But anyway, I will be back soon. Okay, everybody. We've kind of started our puttying on this thing. I'm using Perfect Plastic Putty. This stuff here. This is pretty good stuff. It's water soluble, and it conforms to plastic really nicely. I've only had 1 to 2 passes on each portion here. I just went over right here. This part here has a really bad high-low, so this is going to take a couple of shots. But we've gotten back here. There was a seam right in here that needed to be filled. I've also been working back on the tail, trying to fill all this in. I actually filed this high spot down all the way, along with one of my handy dandy Harbor Freight files. We just kind of taking the edge off and then putting some putty up around it. I still have to do a couple more passes of putty and sand on that. And then on the other side of the ship, swinging around here, we're doing the same deal. Right here, I've made a couple of passes. I just made another one, and you can kind of see how it's a little smeared around here. That's because when I'm done, I take some water and kind of run my finger over it, and it removes a lot of the excess. So I've been filling the seams here and kind of just filling in along the way here. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but we'll get it as close as we can. This is actually a little bit of glue that came through when I glued it together, so I'm not sure how to handle that. I might have to file it down or something of that nature. Might have to get creative, but we'll get it taken care of. But we got basically this seam here is starting to look okay. I'm going to have a few more runs at it and a little bit more sanding, and we should be good. But yeah, I've been filling this in. This is starting to mesh together pretty good, and then the back, same deal. It's starting to mesh together pretty good too. So I've got it filled in, and we're getting her together. So the other parts that I have to fill that I haven't really gotten to yet are kind of up in here. Where the pylons meet together. They need to be filled and sanded and such. There's a lot of glue that kind of squished through when I put them together, and that's kind of made some lumpies. So you probably want to use a little less glue than I did. It's one of those things. But I'm using a file to kind of knock it down. And I'm also putting a little putty in here and trying to smooth it out and kind of turn this into a line as well. So I've made one pass all the way around. I need to make another one, and use my handy dandy etching tool to kind of make it all nice again. So that's where we're at. We're making headway. I'm also in the process of priming the neck and making it ready for putting it together. I have to paint. There's the blow-out panel I got to paint, or not the blow-out panel, the vent, the torpedo vent, and somewhere around here is my torpedoes. I know they're around here somewhere, but whatever. With modeling, you lose everything. They're there. So I've got to paint those two things before I can put that together. But once that's together, we'll putty and get everything nice and neat on that, and then put it on and putty around it, and then I can prime this thing. So we can move on. So we want to get this thing all nice and neat and ready to move on. Can't wait to move on. But anyway, so I'll be back in a little bit with some more puttying and sanding and puttying and sanding, and hopefully we have something to show here. Maybe I'll have some nice clean lines. Or not. You'll never get it. As far as this goes, you don't have to get it absolutely perfect, because there's going to be a strong back decal here that's going to line up on here, and you can hide this pretty decently with that. So just kind of keep that in mind, that you're trying to get it as neat as you can, but you know, it's a model. It will never be perfect. You can never build the perfect model. You do the best you can and move on. If you continue to worry about every single little detail, you'll be here forever. So just try to keep that in mind. So onward. Okay, welcome back. So we've made a little more progress. I've been working on getting this panel line here straightened out and this smoothed out. I still need to do a little bit more sanding here. This line is really hard to get straight. I actually had a bit of that glue bubble that you saw here. I was able to remove most of it and get it pretty nicely done. I still need to do a little bit of work on it to get it as straight as I can get it. Now remember, though, that once you put the strong backs on, if I can show you over here, that panel line just sort of disappears, and you really have to look for it. So that's at least in your favor. Once you get it all done, you don't notice it quite as much. So in this case, I'm going to get it as smooth as I can and everything, and try to knock out a little bit more of the problems there, but we'll get it as close as we can. Now, one of the problems I had was back here. I got it all smoothed out and then realized I got it a little too smoothed out. You want to have this right here kind of well defined, this little round dealy here. And I got it a little too smooth there, so I'm going to work on that just a little bit and try to give it a little more detail. The rest of it is smoothing in pretty good. I need to do a little more putty work, but I've maintained my panel line up here and then over, and then I'm getting it all smooth around here. So we'll see what I can do with that. Hopefully it's not too big of a deal. I don't think it will be, but you know how it goes. And then last but not least, we're gonna look at this other side here. This is the one that's really caused me issues. It's like this line here is just all jaggedy, and I can't quite get it straightened out. So I'm probably gonna have to do just a bit more work to it. And also this line here is still showing up just a little bit, so I still have to work on that. Also back here, there's a gap here that I need to fill in a little bit. And that won't be too big of a deal, but we're getting there. Also, the lines back there, or the gaps back here, are almost filled in. Still need to do just a little more work right here, touch it up. But all in all, I think it's going to come out pretty good. So once that is done, I've been working on the dorsal, getting it ready. The torpedo launcher and vent are in the paint booth right now. They're going to get some gunmetal tonight, and I'll be putting the dorsal together and attaching it here pretty quick, because I have to blend it in with the secondary hull once it's on. So that's kind of the next piece, and once it's all blended in and the seam is taken care of, I can start worrying about the saucer again, and even maybe take a look at the nacelles. Ooh. So all in all, it's starting to look like the ship a little bit. It's kind of neat when you start getting it built up, and you start kind of seeing how it's going to look and how big it is, and you know, it's really kind of fun. So this is the part where it gets kind of exciting. So I hope you guys are enjoying your builds, and I'm actually going to cut it off here. I haven't uploaded a video in a couple of weeks, mostly because there just hasn't been anything new to report, except for I'm puttying and sanding the secondary hull, so which is terribly exciting, let me tell you. every night I try to do a little bit on it, but it takes time to get it just so. And I still haven't gotten it just so. So just keep that in mind when you're doing yours, that yeah, it takes a little bit of work, and this top piece just does not fit exactly the way you want. So you have to kind of work with it and try to get everything lined up how you want. So all in all, though, this one's starting to look pretty good. I think this model, when it's done, is going to be spectacular. So even though it's just a simple build with Aztec decals, I think it's going to be neat as all get out. So I hope you guys are enjoying everything. I'm going to try to make the next video by the weekend. We'll see how that goes, but I'd like to get the dorsal attached and puttied and kind of do a lighting test and get that all set, and then do a video of that. So I hope everybody's enjoying this, and I hope you found it useful, and thank you very much for watching.